My gratitude to Leonard Orr and the teachings of physical immortality. Hello, I'm Jim Morningstar. Leonard Orr, who died the first week of September 2019, was my, quotes, older brother. As such, he for me was a pioneer in opening the doors of consciousness, an innovator who questioned controlling or repressive standards, and a teacher who attracted thousands of students in search of inner empowerment. He was also an individualist who eschewed many social standards, an iconoclast who would shake up expectations of spiritual leadership with statements such as, "I made my first $1 million selling air," and a rebel who delighted in challenging time-encrusted beliefs with concepts such as physical immortality. My introduction to Leonard came through my Tai Chi teacher, Fred Lehrman, in 1976, who later became one of the first certified rebirthers. Joan, my wife, and I had been on our spiritual path for several years, living in an urban spiritual community, doing monthly enlightenment intensives and learning from many qualified teachers, some of whom were great proponents of healing breathing. So when Fred, who was commuting from New York to teach Tai Chi in Milwaukee, where we lived, said he had learned rebirthing from Leonard Orr and recommended we bring rebirthing to our community, it was perfectly ordained timing. Joan and I had just purchased our first house, a 100-year-old 3-story Dutch colonial, which had more rooms than we knew what to do with. So we justified it in our minds by inviting others to live there and dedicating space to traveling gurus who might come to town. The third floor became the first rebirthing center in our city. Diane Hinterman, Marcia Harper, were the first rebirthers to come and do sessions there. They blew the roof off with sessions that defied any logical explanations. For example, I came home one day to a pungent odor in the house and was told that during a rebirthing session with a woman earlier that day, almost everyone attending her nearly passed out while she was breathing and releasing a peculiar smell. She later informed the rebirthers that during her actual birth, a bottle of chloroform was dropped and broke in the delivery room, and almost all the medical staff was overcome with the fumes. A cellular birth trauma release. It was my own breathing, however, that convinced me I wanted to be a trained rebirther as soon as possible. That happened before I knew it. During my regular Monday night bioenergetics class, an attendee fell to the floor and started hyperventilating. I had to either stop her or become an instant rebirther and lead her through a session. After that, we put our 2 children on a plane and went off to do our first rebirthing training in New Orleans during Mardi Gras with Leonard Orr. He was welcoming to the children. Being there as a child in him was always open to children. It was a magical time and set me on a mission to get as much training as I could in becoming a certified rebirther. That happened within 2 years at the Rebirthing Jubilee in Sun Valley, Idaho, a convention of breathers from around the world. At that time, the certification process involved standing up in front of every person in the room and stating that you were a certified rebirther. If one person objected, you were done for the year. It also required an interview with the current certified rebirthers, each of whom had to give their signature to you. There were 9 certified at the time, and Sandra Ray was the last to give her approval to me at the induction ceremony concluding the Jubilee. A perfect test for me, because, as Leonard taught, in spite of this process, we can only truly certify ourselves. I had to certify that I was a rebirther in my own heart, regardless of public approval before I got outside validation. I was the 12th certified rebirther. This certification process ended the next year as a number of us rebelled, as good students should, because it was at a point where it was slowing down the worldwide spread of the breathing movement. I then became the co-director of Leonard's Theta International and organized the seminar circuit for one-year seminar teachers in cities across the United States and Canada. This was Leonard's community building organization, which fostered local organizers for twice-a-month seminars and rebirthings. Community building is still a major focus for me and has gotten renewed vigor in the next chapter of my life. Meanwhile, back in our third-floor rebirthing room, where Diane and Fred were in town doing seminars and sessions, Fred suddenly went to sleep, and a strange man appeared to Diane and told her to come to India. This must have been one of those interventions that were very compelling, because she did. Upon disembarking in India, she was met by someone who bade her to come with him up into the foothills of the Himalayas. After some travel, they arrived at Babaji's ashram. Diane recognized him instantly as the man who had appeared to her. Subsequently, a series of continuously mind-blowing occurrences happened for Diane, who then persuaded Leonard to come to Harakan, where Babaji's ashram is. Now, the most frequent circumstances for those coming to the ashram was that Babaji would allow visitors to stay a few days and then send them home to live their life, hopefully with some transformation of spirit. As it turned out, he allowed Diane to stay 7 months. Many stories came back from her to me that were transformative in my life. The presence of Babaji grew stronger for me from then on. He is still a major teacher and influence in my life. He was recognized by Leonard and Sandra as major teachers in their lives and a central inspiration in the Breathwork movement. Leonard's devotion to the teachings and inspiration of Babaji continued throughout his life. Babaji teaches with, quotes, Leela, divine play. Diane recounted that whatever she was thinking, Babaji seemed to know. One day, she was questioning the validity of rebirthing in her mind when she looked up and saw Babaji laying on the ground doing rebirthing breathing. She then had the thought that rebirthing was obviously the answer to everything, upon which Babaji immediately proceeded to stop breathing completely for a long time and then wink and smile at her. There. Now you've gotten the teaching, and you'll interpret it as you will. Leonard continued his tireless work in spreading the healing agency and spiritual transformations of the spirit of breath throughout the world. He has inspired countless others to take up their calling to be pioneers in their own communities. See his writings on what makes democracy work. He has passed the torch of leadership on to so many who have in turn passed it on to others. I know, because that is how it has come to continue to work for me. A grassroots revolution of empowerment rather than an empire-building model of top-down leadership. This is Leonard's legacy for us all, a legacy for which I am eternally grateful and carry with every conscious breath I breathe. Om Namah Shivaya. A note on the concept of physical immortality, which I believe is often misunderstood. Leonard had a passion for the concept and spent a good deal of time finding people who were 300 plus years old. It's not about who can live the longest. It's about living consciously, such that the beliefs about death are not running your life. It's experiencing the immortal nature of who you are essentially, such that your body is an extension of that consciousness, and its destiny follows from that. Not outside sources like illness, family belief systems, accidents, or planned obsolescence. Babaji himself left his body consciously as part of his Leela. Fully integrating physical immortality can lead to your life becoming more Leela and less struggle. Breathwork and physical immortality. The natural conclusion to gaining mastery with our breath is that of harmony in body, mind, and spirit. This means that our body perfectly reflects the instructions of our spirit, and that we are mentally conscious of what instructions we are giving. Breathwork is the process of creating harmony and increasing consciousness. Body mastery is not a goal reserved for a few yogis living in the caves of the Himalayas, or saints with special powers removed from earthly domain. It is the direct and immediate goal of each one of us who has a body on this planet. Mastery is the ability to use our body directly, effectively, and pleasurably in achieving our purpose on earth. Unless we open our awareness to how we are already accomplishing this goal, we will hold ourselves back in ignorance and fear. Our bodies are miracles of life and will continue to be until we give it or accept the instructions to die. That is, radically change our forms. It's only us who can give or acquiesce to these instructions to our bodies. We are in the process of becoming more conscious of how we do this, as well as how we can do something different. With each breath I take, I put energy into whatever my beliefs are. If I cling to the beliefs of illness, aging, and death as inevitable, then this is what I create. Metaphysically, birth and death are not a tragedy because nothing spiritually is ever lost. The tragedy psychologically is that we deny that we are responsible for these changes. We then blame outside forces and try to convince others of our helplessness. I'm not claiming to be conscious of every instruction I'm giving my body. I'm certainly blinding myself from the truth. However, if I refuse to look at the results, I compound the lie if I assign responsibility for my body to the doctor, germs, or some idea of God that's not a part of my higher self. In so doing, I play victim and perpetuate the original sin, denial of my divine source. Physical immortality is taking 100% responsibility for my aliveness now. It's not pretending to know everything consciously now, but it is certainly not pretending to be ignorant of my higher self. It's affirming the wisdom of my higher self, coming into harmony with it, and dedicating each moment of my existence to a more fully consciously embracing my total being. When I say that I am physically immortal, I am telling my highest truth. This leads to greater awareness and mastery. It affirms my essential being. When I say that I and everyone must die, I'm telling the truth of a limited version of being. This, quotes, limited truth also produces results in accordance with its commands. That is, more illusion of limited reality in which I and others are victimized and helpless. Physical immortality does not mean clinging on to my present physical form as long as possible because I'm afraid of change. This is no better than killing myself because I'm afraid of being here. Our goal is not seeing who can hang on to their body the longest, but rather how we can increase our divine awareness of every change we make. As a physical immortalist, I am dedicated to releasing fear of every aspect of my existence. I may choose to change my physical form in a way that looks like disease and involuntary death to others, and perhaps even to parts of myself. My highest vision and faith, however, is always to embrace responsibility for any choices which increase my awareness and mastery. Even as you are seeing and hearing this, your heart is opening or closing to the call to aliveness. You are in charge of this process. Your mind may bring up every objection to the concept of responsibility for total aliveness. This can be your excuse to close down. See if you are willing to listen to the simple childlike impulse beyond your mental objections that knows that you always were and will always be a presence in the here and now that is not bound by the particular forms around you. It is only in this now that you embrace total aliveness. Every time I make this choice, I reduce the energy that I've committed to my limited negative version of reality. I take the life forms around me less heavily. I see the light and the truth in all more and more. I literally transform my vision of the world. I save the world from my old disparaging view of it and help create the atmosphere in which others are invited to embrace their eternal light and life. I will always have a form and a body as long as I am a divine being. Death does not eliminate my body. It's a change of form. Both birth and death are illusions insofar as they look like something is ultimately lost or gained. As a spirit, I take on particular forms to accomplish my purpose. Life is not better or worse after I die. My purpose is the same, and so are my challenges as an evolving being. The forms may change, but the essence remains. The realization of this at first may be shocking. There's no place to go that is better or allows me to hide from my growth. Here and now is all there is. It is in the present that I can remove the layers of limited illusion to unveil the Garden of Eden in which I am already sitting. And I can greet the divine companions that are waiting for me to acknowledge them. After the initial shock of this truth diminishes, I can breathe easily because I know that there is no place to go other than here and now. What remains is simply the process of increasing my mastery and enjoyment of my divine self, to increasingly incorporate my transformations. This is the state of physical immortality, and breathwork is what I do in this state.